We were talking about, hello? We were talking about the social agreement and how it pertains to art and our society and our lives. How most of the time we need it, but there are times when we could do without it. All walks of life, though, have come to accept it. The law observes it, medical practice observes it, science and education and the workplace observe it. The business world observes it. NASA observes it for goodness sake. UFO research observes it. And lastly but not least, creativity has been made to observe it too. Yes. That is what angered me most, when I realized that even the last bastion of rebellious spirit in man, art, that pure, unconforming energy, has also been tamed by the social agreement. Michelangelo was brought to his knees by Pope Julius II, who was the social agreement of the times, as was the great copier Raphael, Botticelli, and the greatest of them all, Leonardo da Vinci, who was relegated as scenic designer for the theatrical performances of, Ludovico Sforza. Oh, what greatness. None of them could do what they wanted, even though they tried. They were all held back by the social agreement of their time, which described the artist as a static artisan craftsman. Belonging to a guild, workers' union, artists were often seen as a little higher than the common stonemason, or at best an amateur decorator, painting what was required by the church or patron, and strictly obeying narrow parameters. Every idea and style of painting went under heavy scrutiny. Oh, yes. Every creation had to fit to the set norms of that time, or the patron would feel offended and cancel the commission, or fire the artist, or the artist's reputation would suffer. Either way, it was always a grave set back to fail to live up to the social agreement prevalent at the time. Social agreement was behind every contract and every signature. Whoever was paying got his way. And yes, it was always a man. It was a man's world, remember. Women were excluded from such business transactions. The social agreement made sure of that. For all artists, the agreement was tied to their salary and money requirements. There was no other way around it. Artists had to live like everyone else. They bowed to the needs of the necessity. The Renaissance may have been a pinnacle age up for art. Nevertheless, it was not immune from the tug of the social agreement. It was sunk knee-deep in it, so it is a miracle how many of these noted artists got away with it. But some of them did. It's admirable to see Michelangelo stretching the social norms of wall painting to its limits when he painted the vast Sistine ceiling. No artist had tried this before. To toss people across that vast, empty space without losing control and make of the result a coherent whole was next to impossible on such a massive scale. But Michelangelo did it. He satisfied Pope Julius II's hubris and created a cathartic experience for himself as an artist who was aware of how grand his creation was and how far he had gone to break all conventions without rustling anyone's feathers. What a clever man, eh? He depended totally on the fact his creation would be so splendid and overwhelming, as it was, that no one would dare to challenge it. And they didn't. Next, it's imperative we mention Leonardo da Vinci in The Last Supper. Here was an artist who lived his whole life breaking every rule in the book, in an age that would have burned him alive had he been discovered. Leonardo lived two separate lives. One was the famous public life of stardom and notoriety, and the other was the hidden secret life of research, science, and forbidden dissecting of human bodies for anatomical knowledge. Can you believe this? I can't, but it's true. He was also a homosexual, which to the social agreement at the time, the Catholic Church forbade and would have excommunicated him, charging him with heresy and sending him and sending him directly to hell by burning him alive. But somehow, Leonardo's brilliance and outright genius managed to weave past these hurdles and elegance and panache, creating some of the most beautiful, almost mystical paintings ever produced by the hand of man. Oh yes. His paintings are so beautiful that they put a spell on all enmity that might have existed and soared past all resistance. Even the social agreement would have accused him, and it did because it was Leonardo. In his famous Last Supper mural painting, housed in the Dominican refectory of the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan, Leonardo created a tour de force in art that has never been matched. Even the great Rembrandt, in his famous Night Watch of 1642, now in the Rijksmuseum, only approaches but does not surpass the tremulous, spellbinding beauty of the Last Supper. If you haven't seen it, Google it and see it. In making the Last Supper, Leonardo was well within the bounds of any social agreement of the times, since Last Suppers were a common theme commissioned by many patrons, so it wasn't unusual. From there, all similarities end. Compared to what all other artists did with this theme, they cannot hold a candle to what Leonardo attempted. His Last Supper seems to have been made on another planet and brought here by a UFO. Believe me, it does. It transcends his own time, even though it is simultaneously sunk deep in it. To look at it, one can tell it belongs to the High Renaissance of the 1495-1498, but it breaks so many rules of convention and goes off in so many modern directions, it's a wonder it escaped notice even from the Inquisition. But remember, that's Leonardo, so he was sort of untouchable, kind of. The fact the painting seems to appear from the depths of the wall like an apparition, bathed in an eerie light reminiscent of catacombs, it defies all logic. It seems to float within its own world, seemingly illuminated by the side window of the refectory. It's an incredible experience. The brilliant perspective plays a major role in catapulting the image forward and outward to the viewer. The clever use of perspective in this way creates a three-dimensional illusion not seen before in the annals of known art history. It's incredible. Leonardo has brought together perspective with light and dark so sensitively, so breathtakingly delicate. We feel the characters depicted will simply walk right off the wall into our space.